Alrighty, guys, here's a movie that I actually didn't expect to be talking about this year until I saw the first trailer, but once I started to see those trailers pop up, I knew pretty much instantly this was a movie I was going to see. Not only this was a movie I was going to see, but this was a movie that I pretty much I had a good guess that it was going to be something that was pretty well received by critics, but also it just looked exciting to me. And that was 2025's Frankenstein, directed by Guillermo del Toro. And that is the movie that we're going to be discussing today. I have seen it. And we are going to be discussing it and just giving some of my thoughts on the YouTube channel. So this is going to be mostly a non-spoiler review. I don't think I'm going to be discussing spoilers too heavily, although if you have not read Frankenstein or if you have not seen any other iteration of Frankenstein, I suppose there are going to be some spoilers in here just because the story is so well known. And so I'll be discussing some generalities and some of the broader strokes of the story and things like that. But again, I mean, if you haven't seen the movie, I don't think that this review will really necessarily ruin anything for you there. So let's dive into Frankenstein. It's directed and written by Guillermo del Toro and starring Oscar Isaac, Mia Goth, and Jacob Elordi. So it follows the classic tale, right? Written by Mary Shelley, the classic book. And, one of the things that I noticed instantly, and you can go check out some of my other segments where I talked about the trailer for Frankenstein, is that it looked like a very faithful adaptation of the book. Now, to be fair, it's been about 10 years since I've read the book. It's been a long, long time since I've read the book. I actually remember really enjoying the novel, but it's been a long time. So I don't remember all of the details of the book. That being said, one of the things that stands out about this movie is that it is not trying to be, as far as I remember, because I'm sure that Guillermo del Toro took some creative liberties, and I'm sure that he added a lot of things here. In fact, I'm positive he did. But for the most part, it seems like the core of this movie. So again, if you're a huge Frankenstein book fan, don't misinterpret what I'm saying. This is a page by page adaptation of the book. That's not what I'm saying. But I do think that the core of this movie really encapsulates a lot of the themes, character motivations, character arcs, and the core elements of the book. This is a very faithful adaptation insofar as this is a story. It's a complex story, honestly, about monsters, about fatherhood, about creation, and playing God. And I think a lot of those things shine true in this movie. This movie, Oscar Isaac, he plays Victor Frankenstein, carries, he has to play that tortured genius archetype. Victor Frankenstein is one of the very first in media, and not just media, but storytelling. And he does it really well. I mean, he gives a great performance. The performances in this movie, mostly centering around Oscar Isaac and Jacob Elordi, are fantastic. Mia Goth also does a good job, and there are some other characters in there as well. But really, the two central dueling personalities here are Jacob Elordi as Frankenstein's monster and Oscar Isaac as Victor Frankenstein. And their performances are dynamic. I think one of the greatest... Oh, first of all, just actually, before I get to the characters themselves, this is a beautiful looking movie. And it's hard because I watched it on a tablet, and yeah, I wish I saw it in a theater. I don't know. Did they play this in a theater? I'm not entirely sure, but it's a Netflix movie, and it is beautiful. This is one of those movies where almost every single shot just looks like it could be a still frame. It is gorgeous to look at. Every scene, every frame looks intentional. It looks like the camera movements are so dynamic, and just the framing of different things, the lighting. I think lighting is such an underrated part of movies, and lighting in this movie is fantastic. The way that this movie looks lends so much to the atmosphere of what is going on in different scenes, whether it's the gothic in the more laboratory style scenes, whether or not it's the winter tundras, whether or not it is the wooded forests of different parts of the movie. It's just beautiful to look at. So that is one thing that I really think lends to the atmosphere of the film. Of course, you see, and Guillermo del Toro does a great job of this, of leaning into that sort of classic monstrous, the creation of Frankenstein's monster in the lab and the lightning strikes and all that kind of stuff. And it's great. It looks fantastic. But getting back to the characters, I think this film's big strength to me is the exploration of character. Both Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster are given time to really be fleshed out as individuals in this film, and you get to see where both of them are coming from. And I think for Victor Frankenstein, it's a movie about trauma and carrying on that trauma into, just sort of reliving that and in the way of fatherhoods and fathers and sons, where his father, again, I hope this is not a major spoiler, but his father was not kind to him, and he in his own creation, in his own quote unquote son in Frankenstein's monster, is not kind to his own creation, and that leads to bad consequences for him. And so I think it's a story about, again, the othering, right? That's a big part of these monster movies, is the other and othering and treating humans, right? Because Frankenstein's monsters, of course, he's not human, but that's really the question that this movie poses, that this story poses, is what does it mean to be human, right? And you can see the humanity within Frankenstein's monster. So I think that those themes of othering and those themes of rejection, right? That you see those in Victor Frankenstein. It's an interesting character to follow for sure, and of course Oscar Isaac does a fantastic job. Jacob Elordi, I mean, hidden under all that makeup, he does a great job. He shows you the evolution of where this character is going from creation to where he ends up, and it's fantastic because. Again, you have to play. There's so many different layers to this character that you have to play, of the learning to just learning and living and existing for the first time, to sort of tortured, to rageful, to hurt and emotional. There are all sorts of different dimensions to this character that I think Jacob Elordi pulls off really, really well. I do think a couple things that stood out to me as perhaps being not as strong. I think that the pacing in general actually quite works quite well for the most part. I think as in the early chunks of this movie, it's moving really fast. And you're so excited to see where things are going, and you're so intrigued and being pulled in. It has a dynamic pacing, and then it very intentionally slows down in certain parts towards the middle and the end. And I think that's good in general. But as you head into the last little chunk. And I don't remember if this is exactly what happens in the book. So, again, maybe this is just Guillermo del Toro taking it from the book, and that is what it is. But the ending, I think, it almost felt a little abrupt to me, just based on where we were going. I think the conclusion makes sense, but I think how we got to that conclusion based on the structure of the movie and where the characters were going, I think could have taken a little bit more time to breathe, which is funny because this movie is like 2.5 hours long. So, it's a long movie to begin with. But I think that the ending was the one big thing for me where I was like, yeah, maybe wish it wasn't that abrupt. But that being said, this is a little bit of a quicker review, but I think that if you're a fan of the book, I hope that you really enjoy this movie, because I remember really liking the book, and I think that a lot of the core themes of the book really remains in this movie. And it's one of those movies that gets you to think. This is not a movie that I don't think I'm going to be rewatching 20 times because I just get so much entertainment out of it. But it was entertaining. And I think it's a movie that gets you to think about things like humanity and passing on trauma and intergenerational strife and humanity, right? I think things like that. It's what makes these books, those classic books of Frankenstein and To Kill a Mockingbird and Little Women, it's what makes them classics. Those stories endure 200 years later, 100 years later, that these themes really speak true and resonant even in today's age. And I think that Guillermo del Toro did a great job translating that. I really like this movie, guys. I would recommend, if you have a couple hours, great performances, really beautiful to look at. It's a good watch, and I would totally recommend it. So guys, have you seen 2025's Frankenstein, directed by Guillermo del Toro? Let me know in the comments what you thought about it, if you have, down below.